Hello gainers, I'm Ralphie and welcome to my channel called Fitter Philosophy, in which I talk about philosophical things from a practical perspective and based on experience. And I'm going to talk about experience in this video, and I'm sharing my experience of one of the first times that I nearly died. And the reason I'm doing this is it's all very well giving advice, that's useful, but one of the most useful information sharing processes is when we simply share and connect our own personal experiences of life with others, that people can take out of it what they want. And it's a very, very useful form of communication. And when I first died, nearly died, I'm not dead yet. It was actually when I was a kid and I was going home from school and I was getting chased by big boys, and I ran out into the road and there was a lorry coming along the road which I didn't notice in my blind panic, and I nearly got run over. Now, being hit by a car's bad enough, but when a lorry is going full speed along a road, 40 miles per hour, and you're a young boy, the chances are you're going to be completely wiped out. And traffic accidents when I was a kid were not unusual. There was a remarkable lack of awareness in young children as regards fast traffic on roads, and I noticed that kids nowadays are actually a lot more sensible, although they're still daft. But as an adult, one of the first times that I properly nearly died was when I was about 24, and I was in Panama as part of an international charitable expedition, and it was archaeology based, and I was involved in some coastal archaeology in a site called the Darien, and I was also involved in some marine archaeology. And one of the most beautiful sites which is burned into my memory is diving onto an intact, unpolluted coral reef and being absolutely spellbound by the colours and the vibrancy of life. It was magical, absolutely magical. And this was happening at the same month that I'm diving in the Gatun Lakes, which are a tributary reservoir for the Panama Canal. They're freshwater lakes about a third away along the canal from the Atlantic side, and they provide water from the rainforest around, feeding the canal to help keep the water level. And within this, the Gatun Lakes, and they're fairly extensive, they're big lakes, you find a lot of shipwrecks, because ships passing through the canal, if they can't afford to pay, or if they're going to get raided for smuggled goods, one of the things they're going to do is just scuttle the ship, sink it, and get rid of the evidence, or get rid of the problem of having to pay the ticket for getting through the canal. So quite a lot of wrecks going back quite a long way in the Gatun Lakes. And as part of a marine archaeological team, we were examining one of these wrecks for the signs of growth or lack of growth and evidence of residual pollution as a result of what went down with the ship. In other words, oil, plastics, pollutants. It was very interesting. And I happened to be on one ship with a companion, because you dive in pairs, and we're about 40 metres down, so a reasonable depth. A depth that puts you beyond safety when you get into trouble, put it that way. Particularly when you're relatively inexperienced, as I was. And my companion was impatient, to say the least, and wanted to get loads of work done so as to impress the captain of the team, who he wasn't getting on with. And I happened to be roped into this. And we were going along the side of the ship, which was lying in its side. So we're going over the top of the ship, lying in its side, so it's along the side of the ship. And then we reach the tunnels, the funnels, right? And funnels are tunnels, they're small metal tunnels. So he heads down one of the main funnels to have a gander at what's inside. Now inside there is not a lot to see. It was pretty much a waste of time. It was really just rusting metal, slowly rusting metal, and a lot of silt. So we go down the funnel, and then the funnel bifurcates. It kind of leads off to sides. It's got side funnels to help, you know, balance off the smoke coming off the boiler and its removal. And it was a big ship, and we reached the end, and there was this massive grate had been put over the engine room. The engine room looked spectacular, completely intact. All the fittings and fixtures and dials, and I think, in fact, that, to be honest, I think that's what he was after. Cranking off a few of those for souvenirs. It's human nature. But it's when we turned to come back, I happened to glance at my air gauge, and I'd been given an unfilled tank. It had been partially filled, but not filled enough. So I indicated to my buddy, as you call him, you know, I showed the dial down, we have to get out. So he led the way, but as he was doing so, the silt in the funnels down which we had just swum had been disturbed, and it had led to a complete visual blackout. So we had to feel our way out the tunnels. Now at this point I'm in the pitch black with no point of reference, and I know my air's running low, and I'm starting to feel the sense of panic. And it's interesting that the panic, it started slowly, it was in the distance, and it started to kind of build and build. And at that point an inner voice just says, keep calm, don't panic, just get on with it. And we reached this sort of blurry kind of milky kind of coloured light in the distance, so we knew we'd actually got out the funnel. And once I got out, I had another look at my gauge where it was almost empty. And of course you've got to take your time going to the surface depending how long you're diving, so as you don't get the bends. Ask a diver, they'll tell you all about it. And so I'm taking my time going up slowly, and I reach the surface with my buddy at the right point, everything's safe, and we turn around and we're off our diver's course, and 150 metres away a tanker is bearing down on us. Fortunately it was not going very fast, but when you come to the surface you can imagine you're looking up at this metal mountain which is still a quarter of a mile away, but you don't have a lot of time, you really don't. Air or no air, I had to stick my breathing back in, flip and dive down again for at least 20 metres before we went off to the side of where the ship was coming from. All the time not knowing when my air's going to run out, but you've got no choice. So it was a situation that was compounded. It wasn't sudden and completely out the blue. It wasn't like being hit by a car or suddenly falling off a cliff. There was time to know what was going on. There was a small time to prepare, but the amount of risk involved was enormous. Because if I'd run out of air, of course, if I hadn't got to the surface, I would have drowned. Simple as that. What I learnt from that experience was that there is that inner voice of calm that even when we get into danger, which we've tried to avoid, our common sense kicks in, but sometimes things are beyond our control. And if we know that there's that inner voice of calm, if we are friends with ourselves, at ease with ourselves, and know ourselves, we're far better able to deal with these situations when they arise. Another thing I found was, after the shock of 2 potential dying situations, first down in the funnel and then up in the surface getting hit by a tanker, that evening when we're back at our camp sitting in a bar, everything was just more vivid. The conversation was livelier. The colours were more vibrant. It's almost as if I was on something, and I put that down to the adrenaline release, the intense adrenaline release of dealing with a flight syndrome, flight from danger, being so intense and dramatic in the circumstances, and getting to the surface, getting to safety. And then there's that in between, that's that numb moment before the euphoria kicks in. And this, by the way, is why they call it the adrenaline buzz. And this is why extreme sports people, whether they be tower climbers, free base jumpers, wingsuit flyers, this is rock climbers, freestyle rock climbers, this is why they do what they do, because that euphoria, and it's naturally created, although it can be accentuated with other stuff, but we're not going to talk about that. When it happens naturally, it is so intense that it becomes addictive, because for a moment your body is giving you super awareness of what's around you, sight, sound, taste, what you hear. And when it's no longer there, when you go back to normal mode, you're still aware of it and you kind of miss it. And this is one reason why people take drugs. Simples. I hope you've enjoyed this little monologue. As far as I'm concerned, as a practical Stoic philosopher, life is a journey and we all have a path to follow. And sometimes we can control that path, and sometimes it gets controlled for us, and it leads us into situations that are out of our control. But within them we still need to maintain some control over ourselves, because it's the one thing we can control when we can't control the environment around us. It shouldn't last for very long, it should be brief, and it shouldn't be too traumatic. Fingers crossed for you, for us. But if we have this state of grace, a certain inner peace, a good connection with ourselves, and when we understand from experience that grace under pressure, it makes a big difference to our lives. It really helps keep the rudder steady on the ship when we go into choppy waters. I'm Ralphie. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I've enjoyed making it, sharing one of my experiences with you. Sometime in the future I'll tell you, that's not the first time I've nearly died. I have been shot at. I nearly fell over a cliff several times, and I nearly got bitten by a highly poisonous snake in Panama, which it was bizarre, but this is real life. I'm Ralphie, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't, click like if you haven't, enjoy if you need to, and I hope you do, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.